Okay, welcome back to the Be All In podcast and welcome to 2025, first podcast of the new year. Bailey and I are sitting in a new little podcast area. We have a new curtain set up and we are excited to kickstart the new year with a fun podcast, which we've called or defined. We're actually defining what Be All In means. We're going to speak to the definition of Be All In. We're going to speak to what our core values are. We're going to speak to who our community is. We're putting it all in writing out in the world so that we can really explain exactly who it is that we are. How are you, Bailey?
I'm good. I'm very good. I'm excited to get 2025 underway. And I'm excited to officially define what Be All In is. I think why the podcast has been so successful so far is because we're starting to kind of speak things into existence. We're telling our story, telling where we've been, telling where we want to go. And the more clear we can be with that and our values and our mission, then the more people can kind of follow along and see the journey of where we're going. So defining Be All In today is going to be a good one.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we're learning quickly is that the more we are speaking who we are, the more people can really relate to us and get to know us on a deeper level so that when they come through the gym doors or when we speak online, it's just creating a much deeper, richer connection, which is making our community stronger. So we really want to put all of these things in writing. I've got some awesome graphics that I can't wait to post on our socials, to change some of the wording on our website. All of these types of brand building things, it's almost like we're niching down in order to grow further. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, so we are going to start though by wrapping up a bit of what we've been doing for the past 2 weeks. The last podcast we filmed hasn't actually been released yet. It is coming in the coming weeks. So it feels like a little while since we've, caught up with the podcast. The last thing we did was wrap up our 2024. And we've spent the last 2 weeks enjoying some much needed downtime.
Yeah, we did Christmas Eve in Sydney with our family, or Maddie's family. Then we went to Wollongong to spend with my family for Christmas Day and a few days after that. Then we went to Maddie's extended family in country Victoria on the farm, which was amazing. Then we did another stint in Victoria at Ocean Grove. Then we went to Mornington Peninsula for a few days. So we've been here, there and everywhere, but we're back and we're excited to rip into some more routine.
Yeah, so we had a full 2 weeks off. So yeah, we coached the Christmas Eve classes here at Bayfit, and then we had Christmas Eve at our place and hosted that before packing up the car and going away on Christmas Eve. So that was a busy day, but then we were honestly gone for 2 straight weeks. And so we've had the gym for 3 years. So this is technically our 4th Christmas of owning a gym, I guess. And it was definitely a full circle moment to realize, how much our business has grown and changed in that in the past 3 years, in the past 3 Christmases, we worked a lot whilst we were away, and the summer holidays often felt like an opportunity to catch up on work because we had a few less responsibilities. So we were chasing our tail or we were starting up new projects during that downtime, which was what we needed to do during the early days. But now that we're a little bit more established, we have a huge team of coaches, we were able to actually go away and have a proper break from work. I kept saying to Bailey, we're having a proper break. And I feel like we stuck to it pretty well.
Yeah, we definitely had some serious downtime, which has meant there's an itch to come back and get back to work. Although that it's different in that we've worked whilst we've been away in the past. That's more working on the business, but we've actually had to shut our doors. But since we've restructured our model to the class model now, we've had the ability for coaches to keep running classes whilst we've been away. So not just 1 or 2 holiday classes here and there, but we've basically been fully operational for the past 2 weeks whilst we've been away, which has been, the first time we've been able to kind of do that, which is, it's awesome that we can put so much trust in our coaching team and our community wants to come and train during that period when a lot of people just have complete time off. So it's been an awesome 2 weeks for us to get away. I'll step away. But also we're super excited to rip into this year.
Yeah, and even that, having coaches who carried the community through it. We had a New Year's Day class at 6 a.m. where I think we had 20 members rock up and train. So it shows what they were doing on New Year's Eve, which was getting ready for the new year. But it was hard whilst we were away. I almost had FOMO watching the stories. I was like, oh, I'm so happy where I am right now. And I'm loving my holidays. But I think it's a true testament to how great your life is where you don't feel like holidays are a need to escape. They're just what you do to have downtime. But at the end of a holiday, when you are itching to come back to your life, I think it's a pretty good signal of the value and the richness of your life and how much you love your day to day. And Bailey and I often say, like, we love our day to day, in that there's never a need to escape and run away. That is just an added bonus, I guess, to what is our life.
Absolutely. We haven't put any podcasts out in the past 2 weeks just because I know personally I mainly listen to podcasts when I'm in my routine. It's a part of my weekly routine where I listen to audiobook or a podcast from other people. And I know I barely listen to any podcasts over the past 2 weeks. I'm immersing myself, spending time with family, and just doing things we wouldn't usually do. So we haven't released any podcasts in the past 2 weeks, which I don't regret at all. I think it's the right call, but we do have a couple of podcasts that are backed up from last year that have already been recorded, which we will release after we've started the year with our Defining Be All In.
Yeah. So what did your training look like across the break? It was a little different than usual. Often we go away and use this time to get ready for the Open, but
yes,
Bailey especially has been having a bit of a break.
Yeah, well, my trainings looks a bit differently. I think I've spoken previously about doing a triathlon. So I have one of those booked in for February. So I was running every morning, swimming or biking or both during lunchtime, early afternoon, and then lifting weights in the evening. So yeah, it was fun, but much less intensity. Last time I went to Mornington, I was training at Wolf Den with Daisy McDonald, and we were just absolutely ripping into it, starting to prep for the Open. But there was very little CrossFit being done this year for me. But it was a fun time. What about you?
You jumped in on one WOD with me, which was fun, partner WOD.
Yep.
But it was so funny, especially when we're on the farm, which is like in regional Victoria. Bailey was in his Lycra shorts, riding his bike 30 Ks into the town, swimming in the pool, running around, and like, this is regional Victoria, so there's not many cars, I guess, that would see a young guy doing those type of things very frequently. And it's just hilarious. Like, you can tell the cars just so confused as to what's going on.
Yeah. A few beeps, a few yells to get off the road. Some liked it, some didn't, but we got some training in.
Yeah, and the best was, like, I think we posted a video where Bailey was riding into town and we actually rode past my cousin who was herding some sheep on the road. So he literally had to ride his bike through a pack of sheep.
Yeah.
But overall, a really, really good holiday break, much needed. And we both feel excited and happy to be back in our routine. And we have some huge goals to chase now. And in years previous, I feel like we both have alluded to that we often use the break as a chance to catch up on those goals. And this is the first year that we've just actually had downtime. And it's so wild that I'm coming back with all this additional energy. And I feel like the longevity of my goals is going to be so much further versus in times previous. I hit the year so hard that I have a huge dip off. But already I just feel like that kind of more moderate intensity is going to keep me going for a lot longer.
Yeah.
So that is where we've been for the past 2 weeks. We are now back, and let's get into our podcast topic, which is defining Be All In. So I guess, why are we doing this, do you feel like, Bailey?
Well, I think it's just important to, speak your values and your mission into existence and make sure it's very clear that people understand why or what it means, and then why we've kind of like structured our whole business around this term. I had someone yesterday after class say like, how did you like, it was just coincidence that Be All In happened. It just seems like it's something that's it's been such a part of your life. And is that why you always had BayFit? And it is wild that that's how it came about. When we did look to restructure, we looked to change our name completely. And we at that point, we were writing down what are our values, like who are the people that we want to be, and what do we stand for. And I've mentioned previously, but that was just one of the values. And then Maddie just put two and two together. That was an acronym. We weren't looking for the acronym, but it just happened to be it. And that's why we went with it. It just made perfect sense, and it is the perfect fit. But then we do need to just really clearly define what that means so that people can relate and align with those values.
Yeah, and the craziest part of that story of when we were choosing the term Be All In is that when we decided it and we then looked back on previous things we've said or previous posts we've made, how frequently we were using that terminology and we didn't even realize it, because it is just a core value that like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, and that we really do give a lot of ourselves to the task at hand. And that's something we've always done, and just really tried to deliver whatever we're doing to the highest standard possible. It's something that's so true to both of us. And now that our business is centered around it, just makes so much sense. It's so easy to be authentic when you truly are living your brand message. So another thing about why we want to define it, and at the end of every podcast with our guests, you would notice that we ask them, like, what does Be All In mean to you? Because I think it's super important to note that there is not a definition that fits all, and that it is custom to the individual. And we had a really nice team meeting with our a group of coaches at the end of the year where we sat down and we asked everyone what Be All In means to them, because everyone has a different definition of it. And if we tried to apply a Bailey's definition to some of the members at our gym, like my mum that trains, like I'm sure that doesn't exactly align with her. But there are commonalities, I guess, between everyone's definition. But we want to reiterate that it is custom to you.
Yeah. There's one thing that when we ran the Bergner Strength course a few weeks ago, that one of the coaches, Cody Looney there, said, like, as coaches, we want to meet the member where they're at +1. And so if you coach them at a 10 out of 10, but they're only at a 1 out of 10, then like they're not going to relate to you at all. And it's kind of similar with this definition. Like everyone will have their own version of what Be All In means for them. And all we're trying to do is trying to meet people where they're at and encourage them to up it by one level and be better than they were yesterday, kind of thing. So I love that concept, and we'll dive a little bit more into the exact definition of what we have.
Yeah. And I think another thing to start with is by saying what Be All In is not, because since we've sort of introduced this term, we've used the phrase used in settings that we kind of went, oh, that's actually not what we're about. And I think now if we can publish like what it is not, it'll also help us like have a good hold on that, because Be All In is not something to use like in a derogatory sense to speak down to someone else's effort levels. And that's why we're saying it's custom to the individual, because Maddie Gilmore, who's making Torian this year again, like her level of Be All In is a lot different. And I'll use my mum as the example of her version of Be All In. And we don't want anyone to ever apply someone else's definition to sort of speak down to someone. Do you agree with that, Bailey?
Yeah, I just think that everyone has a different capacity of what they can put as all in or classify as all in into their certain the task at hand, whatever it is. And so, yeah, you know exactly how much of that you can give. And if you are truly giving everything you have to whatever that task is, then you are all in. I think some people can like realize, oh, you know what, I probably could have given a little bit more. And that's what we're trying to encourage. But yeah, whether you're working 9 to 5, you've got kids, you don't have kids, like everyone has a different scenario, so they're going to be able to apply different effort levels to that. So yeah, it'll mean something different for everyone.
Yeah. And then last thing is like, it's not an all or nothing approach. And I think that's where the confusion that lies. And like, we're not saying that to be all in, you have to sacrifice everything in your life. And it's something that more and more we're making sure that people in our gym know that like, we understand that you have a career, you have families, like there is so much happening in life. And that's why we keep saying this idea of define your capacity and then meet that level +1, because everyone's capacity is completely different.
Yeah. I thought like one thing I found really hard, but I learned at a young age, is when I stopped playing basketball. And that was my whole life. It's all I wanted to do was play basketball, go to college, play professionally. And the day I decided that I was going to stop playing, I just couldn't, like, I was so emotional about it and sad about it because I just put so much into it. And I was like, I can't waste all of this. Like, I've been all in on this. Like, my whole life was meant to be working towards this one thing. And it was really hard. But once I kind of let go of that and transitioned out of that, that was when I first learned that, like, just because I'm no longer all in on that one thing doesn't mean I can't transition and be all in on different things. And it won't always be the same thing. And my definition is about whatever you do, be all in on that one thing at that one time, so you're completely present in that moment. But I learned that lesson early because at one point in time, it was all or nothing. I was all consumed by the basketball and nothing else really mattered. But now I've learned that you can be all in on multiple different things at the same time, and seasons will come and go. But when you're in that season, make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like another sort of phrase that goes with it is that you can do everything, but you just can't do everything all at once. And so your level of all in on everything is going to have a different capacity. And that's what we just say, like, know your priorities, like, through and live by that and create boundaries and whatever you need to do to achieve your goals. Our goal is to help you do that. So yeah. All right, maybe we roll into you next. Bailey, what is your definition of be all in?
Yeah, so being all in for me just means that if you're going to do something, do it well. And it means don't do things in halves. Like if you're going to put any energy towards doing a thing, do it to the best of your ability. I'm obsessed with this concept of maximizing your own potential in no matter what aspect it is in life. And when you do that thing, do it to the best of your ability. And if it wasn't to the best of your ability, or you feel like, you know what, I need to learn more about this skill or this fitness or this job, whatever, then learn and be all in and get better at that thing. And like Maddie said, if you prioritize everything, you prioritize nothing. So there will only be a few priorities that you can be all in on. But if you're going to do something, do it well. And that's something that I've carried in every aspect of my life, even something as little as, like, if I walk past a garbage can that's like full, if I just go, oh, I'll get it later, or the next person will get it, like, that's kind of cutting a corner. Something so simple, so little in one aspect of my life. And if the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, then I'll cut corners in other aspects of my life. And that's something that we say in the gym. If you're going to cut reps, you're going to, like, shorten your range of motion, not do the full thing, you're going to quit early. If you quit in the gym or cut corners in the gym, that's what you'll do in life. So we try and create an environment, atmosphere, and a culture around doing that hard thing and not cutting corners. And the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So then when you leave the gym, those are your values and you carry those with you the rest of the way.
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, be all in means that you define your capacity and then you reach that capacity. And I really think for me, it's a lot more about knowing what your priorities are and then ensuring that you don't let them slip. And your priorities will shift and change through every single season, which is why I think it's important to constantly assess and have like short cycles of when you're trying to achieve a specific thing. And for myself, like, I know that my training and performance, it changes throughout the year, and the level of effort that I give to it changes throughout the year, pending what the season, but pending what events I have coming up. So I think it's important that I consistently check in with myself. I define my capacity. What are my goals? What is it going to take to achieve them? And then I make sure that I do those things and don't cut the corners, I guess, that Bailey's talking about with that.
Yeah, I think like it has the potential. We've had people come to us before me like, hey, I want to go all in on CrossFit. Like, all in, I want to quit my job, I want to train full time. Like, I want to go all in. And that is like super admirable. And we like will support people and get them, or like do our best to get them where they want to go. But like, and things I've learned in the past before, there's a difference between all in and then being all consumed. And in the past, I've been all consumed with making the Torian Pro and trying to make the CrossFit Games one day, that I've neglected other aspects of my life. And I've gone past the point of all in, that like, yeah, I was too focused on just one thing.
And then on the adverse, we've also had people at our gym come up to us and say like, oh, but I'm only half in. I'm only half in on my training. And there's a specific person that said this to me, and I was like, but that's okay, because I know how much you have on in your life right now. And as long as you know how many sessions per week you want to hit and you rock up with an amazing attitude and you get the absolute most out of that hour, you are all in, because you can't expect to train the same way that someone pursuing the CrossFit Games is going to. Like, it's just not realistic. So you're not half in, you are all in, but it's all in for you and noting everything else happening in your life. Like, and it makes me laugh, because that is just like, I guess for me, what is so important about this like mantra.
Yeah, it's why we need to define it, because we don't want people being like, oh, if I don't train 6 days a week, twice a day, I'm not all in at BayFit. Like, if, like Maddie said, define your capacity. If you have the capacity to train with us 3 times a week, then commit to those 3 sessions, turn up for those 3 sessions, and when you're here, make the most out of that 60 minutes. And that is like what being all in is for us. If you skip out on one of those sessions because, oh, I just can't be bothered, then it's like you look at yourself, am I all in? Like, am I doing everything that I can? And then when you're here, if you're like, oh, I'm just going to skip this set, or I'm not going to give the best effort I can for my capacity, then you might not be all in. But if you can come to 3 sessions and you do come, and when you're here, you give everything you have, that is the culture and the effort level that we're trying to promote through this mantra.
That is it. So I guess be all in is our mantra, our overarching umbrella term. But then within that, we've worked really hard to define our core values, and we have 4 of these. And it is so funny that these have evolved, and we had a set of core values when we first started the gym. Like, we published a document for our staff, and like a lot of these are evolutions of those concepts. It's not a revolution that it's completely different, but it is so true to who we are right now. And they're things that we say all the time, but we want to speak it into existence so that other people can relate to it too. So did you want to kick off, Bailey, with your favorite one, I guess?
Yes. First value of ours is that the environment is everything, or your environment is everything. And we truly believe this, that we want to, as gym owners, need to create the environment for people to be successful. And it comes down to all the little things, by having like a nice clean facility, the equipment being like the best of the best, the music, the speakers being loud enough that we can bring the energy, the coaches being educated enough that they can give energy and education, having the group size being like, or the class size being big enough that there's an atmosphere and an energy about it, but not too big that you lose the coaching touch point. Like, we try and create the best environment possible for you to be successful, and we truly believe that that is what breeds success, and that is why we've had so much success within our gym. So environment is everything, and we truly believe that.
Yeah, and I think further to that, and a good example is our compete class, because both Bailey and I, at different stints, before we had the Bayfit HQ, we would train alone. We would train in the garage by ourselves, and it takes an insane level of discipline to do that, and it can be really lonely. And we wanted to create this compete class and this compete atmosphere to allow those athletes to train alongside other like-minded individuals who are chasing the same goals. And I truly believe that that is a class and a program like nothing else. Like, you have to travel to the States to train in a training camp to get that kind of environment, and that's a class that we run every single day. And when people come and they train within it, like we had someone come from another gym and bar muscle ups were in the program. And at his previous gym, he was the only person that did bar muscle ups. Versus at our gym, I think almost every single person in the class was doing bar muscle ups or some form of a breakdown with confidence. And that is because we've kind of segmented our classes to ensure that people are able to push their potential without feeling like they are either slowing someone else down or having any negative impact on someone else. And like, that environment is absolutely everything. And I feel like it's why our athletes are able to get such crazy results.
Yeah. You never want to feel like there's that typical tall poppy syndrome, that if that one person is doing the bar muscle ups, people almost want to poke fun at them or try and bring them down and make them feel like they're the odd one out. But we are very much the opposite. We want to encourage that performance-based mindset. And if you want to get better, then we're going to help you the best way we can. And one of the best ways to do that is have other people who are better than you or at a similar level to you to push you along for the ride. And so we've kind of created that environment, but it's interesting that you don't need to be at a certain level to compete. You don't even need to compete. You just got to have aspirations to get better at the sport of CrossFit, which not everyone has. So if you want to do weightlifting, then you come to the compete class. If you want to do gymnastics, you come to the compete class. If you don't want to do that, then you just come to the hybrid class, which is more than enough strength and conditioning to get you in great shape, looking great, feeling great, the fittest you've ever been. But those higher skill movements like weightlifting and gymnastics that are in the sport of CrossFit, they'll be in our compete class. But instead of not doing much of that, because the majority doesn't, we want to cater for those people who do want to do it. And that environment is where people get really good at the sport of CrossFit, which is why when we go to local comps or the Down Under CrossFit Champions, or we have like 2 individuals qualify for the Torian Pro, like the proof is in the pudding that the compete class is doing its job.
And I think another point to, I guess, build off that, which is our second value, is that we compete without comparison. And this is in all areas. It's not just related to even competing specifically. It's just about how you even see your personal value versus everyone else. We really, I think this came from the fact that when our gym first started, we had a very strong female dominant environment. And Bailey, being my lovely partner, also has been with me and seen the impact of girls constantly comparing themselves to everyone else. Like, it is so innately female, and I guess boys do it too, to constantly be comparing to everyone else. And the minute that you then create a competitive environment, that comparison can become quite toxic. And it's something we've worked so hard to not even have to stamp out, because it's never been an issue, but just to encourage people to try their absolute best and then celebrate their best without comparing it to anyone else's results. And I think that's also why people are able to try new things in our gym, because there is no fear of failure, because it's not about comparing yourself to anyone else. It's just about doing your individual absolute best.
And it doesn't just happen straight away. I'm like, the first time someone comes to Bayfit, you are going to compare yourself, and like you will be self-conscious, but over time, with a coach reinforcing it and the people around you not singling you out or looking at you funny, it very quickly, that culture sets in. But we're not saying you just walk into the door and suddenly like, oh, I just don't care. People are going to be innately insecure when they can't do things that other people can. But our culture is so strong, and anytime there is that self-doubt, we are so quick to get rid of it, acknowledge what they have done, how far they have come, what they've done well, what they can improve on. But it's not, or you aren't good at that. It's like, okay, that is the area we need to improve on. How are we going to do that? And then we move forward from that. And I think we have to work really hard to create that culture, but we want the environment and that competitive environment, but we don't want the comparison, because there will always be someone that's doing worse than you, but there will always be someone that's doing better than you, always. And if you always are looking to compare, then you might never be happy. But we want to be happy in your own skin, celebrate where you're at, know where you want to go, and then let's work really hard to make it happen.
Yeah, and we often say, like, to our coaches that, like, coaching is like a lot of physiological, but it's mainly psychological. And like, we, especially having that PT environment, we had so many conversations with people and like emotional breakthroughs where we really helped them develop this like level of resilience in terms of that competing without comparison.
Yeah. Very early on in my coaching career, I had a mentor say to me that the number one job as a coach is to instill confidence in your athletes. That is the number one job as a coach. And how do you do that as a coach? You don't just like shout affirmations that you're doing so good and tell them that they're confident. You have to let them prove it to themselves that they can do what they say they can do, or what they say they want to do. And that comes from the coach being educated enough to put the measures in place that allow that athlete to get better at the thing they want to get better at, and then reach that goal, and as well as manage their psychological needs when they're going through that hardship in order to get to that point. But as coaches, that is our number one goal. We must instill confidence in our athletes, and that's something that we value super highly here.
Yeah. Okay, our next value is that a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yep, I love this one as well. You can see they all kind of tie into each other. We want to create the environment. We want to compete without comparison. And then if the person next to you is getting better, then it's only going to make you get better as well.
Yeah, isn't it that they say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And I feel like our whole community knows that we're surrounding ourselves by other people who are just pushing us. And in our gym too, we all, obviously you would think it's just through your performance in the gym, but it's not. We go to coffee after and we're talking about our business goals, our personal goals, our relationship goals, and the people we are around are constantly pushing ourselves to be better in all areas of our lives.
Yeah, I think, you're absolutely right. The community we have is super different. It's really hard to explain it to someone from the outside without sounding a little bit wanky and cocky. But yeah, we've just built such a tight-knit group, which... yeah, it's welcoming of people from the outside as well. But then once they kind of like find their people, it's just so easy to just rise with them all as one. And so, yeah, in the gym, people are getting fitter and stronger than they ever would have thought. But also there's so much talk about outside of the gym as well. Like, how is work going? What are your goals? Like, how are you going to complete this year? There's just so much support there, which is really cool. And so I feel like everyone is slowly, incrementally getting better. And yeah, if one boat rises, then the whole boats rise.
Yeah, if you haven't watched on our YouTube channel the Marty documentary about his story, I feel like that is the best example of this value that a rising tide lifts all boats. And at the end of the documentary, you just have to watch it to hear his full story. But he says how he wants to move to a completely different state, but right now that would be the stupidest choice for him because the environment that he's in and the people that he's around are making him such a better person that it would be like completely idiotic to leave that environment right now. And I think that just speaks to like someone else's, I guess, experience of coming to our community, and the person he was then to who he is now is completely different. So you'll have to watch that to get this whole value.
A great watch. And even like they're bringing up of Marty, like him, Franco, myself, are three of our coaches. We're three kind of like alpha males, if you will, that like, and we're all trying to reach similar goals. Like we've all been racing to 120 kilo snatch. And yesterday, Marty snatched it before us. And in a toxic environment, Franco and I would be like happy for Marty, but kind of like, a little bit annoyed. Like, selfishly, I wish I got there first kind of thing. But there's just not a single element of that. There's like, we only celebrated his success like so highly. And it's always the way no matter what we're doing. Yes, we kind of like have a bit of playful banter and we push back and forth, and Marty might let us know about it. Like, I got there first, blah, blah, blah. But Franco and I were truly and genuinely so happy for him. And that is where like that rising tide, like him snatching 120, we like, oh shit, we got to pull our finger out and we got to get to that level as well. And I just think there's so many little aspects like that. If there's three people who are going to be toxically competitive with each other, it's probably the three kind of alpha male leaders of the gym, but we just don't have that at all.
I always say to people that like the three of you's dynamic shouldn't work because three insanely competitive guys, it tends to breed like a level of toxicity, but it just doesn't at all. You love each other so much and you like genuinely want the best for each other.
Yeah. But in saying that, we have in the past had people who you can kind of tell that their support isn't genuine, or they might say like a backhanded kind of compliment that like is technically saying, oh, well done, but it's kind of saying something else with an undertone. And if that happens more than once, we will pull people aside and we will talk to them about that. And we've done that multiple times. And they're not easy conversations, they're hard conversations. But we value that culture so highly that we are the ones who will have those tough conversations, because the environment that we're trying to create is what our whole business is pinned around. So we need to make sure that people understand that. And if they don't, that is okay. We might not be for everyone, but often people realize that, sorry, I didn't even realize I was doing that. Maybe it was just me self-consciously saying that. I will make an effort to be better, and then they fall back into line. And it's something that I know a lot of gym owners don't do through talking to them directly, because there's an element of worrying about ruffling feathers there. Or I just don't want to upset that person by commenting on what their behavior. But if you don't do that, that's fine. You're always going to have to sacrifice something. You either sacrifice your culture and environment, or you potentially sacrifice that person's feelings or losing them as a member. You can't have it both ways. You just get to choose which one you want to do. And we know what our priority is, and that's our culture and environment. So anytime that needs to happen, we do that.
That was so well said. Good job, Dal.
Thanks, Dal.
Okay, our final value, which again, we've spoken to a lot, but it is the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. I don't even know if we need to elaborate on that anymore. It is just so what we are about. It's basically Bailey's definition of be all in.
Yeah, it's simple. And I just think there's no other way to really go about it. Habits are just so easily formed, good habits or bad habits. And if you just commit to doing everything the same way, and they're all good habits, then you're only going to guarantee to build consistency, and then build success. And the number one thing to be successful is consistency. And if you do everything that same way, where you don't cut any corners, then it might be hard today, but tomorrow it'll be easier. And if you just keep doing that over a lifetime, then when you get to the end, I'm sure you'll be pretty happy where you end up.
Yeah, and it's like all the little things add up to big things. That's something I always think, like the making your bed in the morning, your morning routine, like how you approach your work, your relationships. It all is so critical to the next flow on effect, like that habit stacking mindset. So it's why we are so big on like everything, making sure that you do it to your absolute best.
I think going back to that though, it could be very easily confused, or that everyone will have a different capacity with that as well. And so someone might not be able to make 100 out of 100 good decisions a day, but meet someone where they're at and then try and plus one and get better. So example, like Marty Strong eats whole foods 24/7, 7 days a week. Like it is remarkably impressive that he can only eat whole foods. And I've taken inspiration from that, and I've changed a lot of my diet in the past 6 months to mainly eat whole foods. But for me, my capacity is I want to do that Monday to Thursday or Thursday night. So on Friday night, I can go out and have sushi with friends. And then Saturday night, I can have pizza. And I can go out to the tuck shop on a Saturday morning and have like a bacon and egg roll or something like that. So my capacity or what I want to do, I'm like, you know what? I can Monday or Thursday, there's no reason I can't do that. And I'm going to commit to that. But then I'm going to allow myself that little bit of flexibility. And it doesn't mean that I'm not all in on whole foods. It just means that my capacity is a little bit different to his. And I think that will have the same effect with everyone, that you might be like, oh, I've got a couple of bad habits right now that I wish I could change. Just change one thing at a time and slowly try and work your way to doing the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah. So the next thing we wanted to go into, because those are our core values. We're going to post them. We're going to keep speaking to them. They are so true to who we are as people, who we want our community to be. And I think like a common question is like, well, then how do I be all in? Because obviously you can try to act in those ways, but we've given 4 really actionable steps of how to be all in at the Bayfit HQ or in your everyday life. And they're very well-rounded, but they're also for us, I guess, the definition of who we think a Be All In Fitness member is, or who someone a part of our community is. So the first point is that you can be all in by being willing to learn and have a go. And that at Be All In Fitness, we are doers. We are not afraid to have a go because we know that failing brings the greatest level of growth.
If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, buddy. But yeah, we want to always be learning. If you're not learning, if you're not going forwards, then and you're stagnant, then you're going backwards. And if you're going to try something new that you've never done before, you've got to expect to fail a bunch of times before you get that. And we're huge on encouraging that and being okay with that and not feeling like a failure. You're just learning. You're either winning or you're learning, and then we grow from that.
Yeah, and I think I heard recently someone saying that like to do something, you got to be willing and able. So we will help you be able, but you've got to be willing to give it a go. Like our job is to help you build the foundation, but then it's up to you whether you want to like push yourself past that point of discomfort.
Yep. It's someone like doing a 1 rep max snatch or a ring muscle up for the first time. Like we can do all of the breakdown drills before it, but if you're not going to fully commit to that turnover or whatever it is, and you kind of hold back, like we can't do that for you, you've got to be completely willing that like it might not pay off, but if you don't go all in on this ring muscle up right now, you're not going to know. And so I'd rather you go all in and fail, learn from it, and then come back and go again than not have a go at all. And I think it's so much easier to just not have a go because you're not risking failure. But we are very much against the grain on that one.
Yeah. And then the next point we say is that you give your best effort. This links into point 1, but best effort is individualized to the member. You define your capacity and then you give that level of effort. And that for us is just so important that even if you can only do 3 sessions a week, you make sure that during those 3 sessions, you give your absolute best effort.
Yep. And even like if we're doing workouts in the gym and it might have squat snatches at 60%, Maddie's 60% and my 60%, although they're different weights, it's the same for us. So there's like, we can race each other and there's no excuses because that's the same percentage for her and for me. And so we're giving the best effort even if the weights are different. And that's the same if I'm going against another guy. We can be competitive and have that competitive environment, but we're not going to have that comparison of going, oh, well, you only beat me because you were lifting lighter than me. No, that's not it. We compete without comparison.
And in line with that competing without comparison, the next way you can be all in is to support others at all times. I think a huge part of this too is that even if someone is doing better than you, you still show up and support them. And if someone is not doing it to the same level as you, you're not condescending. You just support them authentically and with your absolute best effort as well. We support others at all times.
Yeah, it's huge. It sounds simple enough, but there's just like, good people are kind of hard to find, just quietly. And you've got to be very secure within yourself as an individual to be happy for people doing better than you. And it's rare because there's always going to be someone, but if you can find that security and trust your environment and know that no one's looking down on you, then you don't need to look down at anyone else and you don't need to resent anyone for doing better than you. So, we are huge on supporting others and truly being genuine about that support.
Yeah. And then our final point of how you can be all in is that you respect other members, you respect the facilities, and you respect our team. This one is quite specific to our gym and we have lots of examples of it, but someone who is a Be All In Fitness member, they are proactive in how they clean up after themselves. They listen to the coaches, they listen to other members, they never speak on top of anyone else. And they truly act like, I don't know, a stand-up citizen. Even when they're in the gym, it's not a point for them to come into these four walls and act out like a hooligan. They really respect everything that we're trying to do and what we're trying to be.
Yeah, even we just kind of touched on it with the support. If you think you're better than someone else, then you will speak over the top of someone else. So you're being disrespectful, and we're huge on respect. Huge on respect.
To a degree, we're almost militant with it.
It's almost military back. Yeah.
It's just something that we've done because, again, and I think a lot of it honestly comes from the fact that during our early days, Bailey was coaching and I was a member. I wasn't coaching at the time, and he would be running a class and I had so much respect for what he was doing. So if someone spoke when he was, it just lit this fire inside me to be so angry. And so then I would be in the class moving around to people, tapping them hey, don't speak over the coaches. And that's created this level of it is a clear respect for our coaches because we know how much value they have to give. So we want to absolutely suck every ounce of it out of the coaches at the same time. And it's something that we're so big on now. We have a huge coaching team and we always say to the coaches that if you're training in the class, it is your job to ensure that level of respect is upheld to the absolute best standard. And especially when new people come in, because this is not common at all gyms. And we've experienced this a lot when we'll do drop-ins when we're on holidays or at other facilities, that when coaches explain the workout, members might be talking or even warming up, dropping barbells. And the
it's
first
just
time
the
this
expectation.
happened, I was looking around the room, giving people the biggest death stares because I was how can you not be respecting the coach? But it just isn't their culture, but it is our culture to completely respect the coach at all times.
Yeah, 100%. And I mentioned it before briefly that, you can either potentially upset someone by calling them out, or you can just let people walk all over you and speak over the top of you. And you can't have it both ways. And we've really chosen what our path is, and we uphold respect at the highest level. And you if a coach is speaking, you will listen to them. And if they're not, then either the coach will call you out, or hopefully someone in the class will nudge you and give you that that little sign that, hey, we don't do that here. And it's the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. And if we accept that disrespect in terms of leaving the gym messy, or speaking while the coach is speaking, or whatever it is, and even if someone is speaking to me whilst Maddie's coaching the class, I'm not just going to listen. I'm going to be hey, just 1 second. And we can have that conversation in a minute once they finish the brief or whatever it is. But we're huge on respect here, and hopefully our culture means that the coach doesn't have to be the one calling people out, because the whole community understands that is the expectation. And then people can call it out when they see it, or they can help clean up when the gym's not to the highest standard, or whatever it is. We just have a whole community of coaches, not just a select few.
Yeah. And like, it sounds militant, but God, we have fun at all other points of the session.
Yeah.
It just means that we have controlled fun in that we ensure that we do it when it's in like an appropriate time, because the people that are coming to our gym want to get better. And so if you're not able to like get the most out of the coaches and you're not maximizing your potential in an hour, you'll see that all of these things link into this bigger concept of reaching your full potential.
Yeah, that's what we're about. Just absolutely maximizing your full potential. Whatever you do in life, just do it the best you can. Find out how good can you really be at that one thing. For me right now, it's the triathlon space. It still will be the CrossFit space. It was the AFL space before that, basketball before that. And like whatever I'm doing, and that's just this athletic realm, I'm all in. I want to get as good as I possibly can at that one thing until the season changes or something else tickles my fancy or whatever happens then. But when you're doing it, find out how good can you really be at that one thing, and then give it everything you got.
So that is how you can be all in. That's how you can come to our gym and be all in here. We have some fun promotions running at the moment. Check out our Instagram and socials for that. But that is all we have for today's podcast. We've gone over our definitions of be all in, our core values, and how you can be all in here at the Bayfit HQ. But I'm really proud of that episode. Honestly, like, this has been in the works for a long time. We've been talking with our coaches, talking together to really work hard to have the perfect language for who we are. And we're going to continue speaking to this. We're going to publish more about it, and we're going to keep breaking things down more and more because it's fun and it's just who we are.
Yep. It's always been a part of our culture, but by verbalizing it, by putting pen to paper, we're making it very clear, black or white, that anyone who listens to this podcast, they can be like, you know what, they're speaking to me. I am that type of person. I want to have a go. I want to learn. I want to give my best effort. 2025, I'm joining Bayfit kind of thing. Or for the people who already train here, you know what, I am all in a Bayfit. My 3 days a week is enough, and I feel a bit more motivated after listening to that I'm going to try even harder for those 3 days when I'm in the gym, or I might even try a fourth day. And so that's why it's so good to be able to speak in length about what this definition is, put pen to paper, and have that clear language around it so people know exactly what we expect and where we're going with this Be All In.
So if you enjoy this podcast, we encourage you to subscribe to our channels. Subscribing is the best way to hear all of our new episodes that drop every single Monday. Monday's our podcast day. You can also rate the podcast. That would be helpful of us spreading the word. Share it with a friend who you think it might relate to. But we're excited to be back. 2025 is going to be a huge year for Be All In Fitness. We are absolutely oozing with energy, and we're going to give it our absolute best. So we're going to reach all of 2025's potential. All right. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to be all in.